Good morning, everyone, and welcome into the Monday, August 23rd edition of Leading Off, presented by Manscaped. My name is Brennan Tuma. You can find me on Twitter at TooMuchTuma. With me is Mike Maher on Twitter at Mike Maher. This is a man who this weekend met Joe Pisapia in real life and lived to tell the story. Mike, how was that?
That's true, and I can confirm that he is the exact same person in person as he is on the podcast. It's the same guy, same energy, same everything.
That is really nice to hear. I have never met Joe myself, but I can picture it would be as electric as it sounds, just breaking right into Manscaped reads and making everyone feel on edge, but also just, good at the same time. That's the energy that Joe brings.
Yep, that's exactly how it was.
One thing that I think Joe would be happy with from this weekend in baseball is that Miguel Cabrera hit his 500th home run. Mike, I just remember being a kid and, back in, 2010 when hitting 500
back in
homers,
2019.
500 homers used to be like the biggest deal ever. And, you and I are obviously still super plugged into baseball right now. But if you weren't, I feel like most casual, just, sports fans don't even know that this happened.
Yeah, and I think the thing that kind of like stinks about the Miguel Cabrera situation is that like he hasn't exactly like aged beautifully, which I mean he's 100 years old, so that's fair. But it's just like that contract is so bad that it's like, he still has like 2 more years and like 60 something million dollars left on that before they get to the options of the contract, which they're gonna buy out. So it's kind of a shame that like the end of his career is kind of like faded like this. But then you look at the numbers and you're like, wow, I forgot how good this guy was. And he's still like a good hitter. He's just not like great anymore.
Yeah, he's actually been, pretty serviceable for the Tigers this year. And I'm in a deep league where I actually do roster him. And, he's not like a total sinkhole. His contract is so funny. I think it might be both 22 and 23 or 23 and 24. There's a clause where if he finishes top 10 in the MVP voting, it like triggers like the club option getting picked up or something like that.
That would be a nightmare for the Tigers.
Yeah. Quick trivia. Do you know who the last player to hit their 500th homer was?
No, I don't. I don't even want to guess and embarrass myself.
Yeah. David Ortiz back in 2015.
I was going to guess Ortiz, but something told me he ended at like 480 or something. So I didn't want to guess.
Yeah. I just thought like that was kind of surprising. For a few years there, it felt, like everyone was doing it. And then I started looking at, active home run leaders, and I'm not even sure, who might be next.
Yeah, I'm sure hittings, with the home run explosion, someone will get there, but it's kind of like that 3,000 strikeout mark. Like, when are we going to see that again?
Yeah, no, that's true. A lot of those stats are going to, we're going to have to recalibrate how we view baseball players. But yeah, congrats to Miguel Cabrera, 500th home run, 28th player in big league history. He's also just 45 hits away from 3,000. He's a 2-time MVP, a World Series champ, and he won the Triple Crown, which is something I never thought would happen, in the near future or anything. So, yeah, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. My weekend was
first ballot with Joey Votto. They might go in the same time.
That's true. That's true. My weekend resumed a bit, Mike, because I went to the Red Sox game on Saturday night, and that was quite horrible. And if you haven't heard, the Yankees are playing very well right now.
I've seen. Did you see that? We have it in the bad, but have you seen that like Orioles Yankees stat since they played and like the Orioles hit like 5 home runs against them? The Orioles have lost 18 in a row, and the Yankees are like 16-3.
Yeah, that is. Oh my God. Since the trade deadline, it was really like there were a few teams that made, a big move to try to get better. Like the Yankees obviously were one of them, and the Red Sox, like we added Schwarber, but it just hasn't clicked. It's been really frustrating. The Yankees have won 19 of 23. They've won 8 in a row. Luke Voit is, kind of who I wanted to highlight. The Yankees got rained out on Sunday, but Luke Voit went 6 for 9 with a homer and 2 doubles and 6 RBIs on Friday and Saturday. I've been very outspoken about this playing time crunch. It does not seem like it's going to be a problem for Luke Voit. It seems like they're just going to mix and match everywhere. Do you think there's any other analysis from the Yankees situation?
No, I mean, I don't think Rizzo has great numbers, but they need that. I think Dan mentioned it last week. They need that left-handed bat in the lineup, and he's a fantastic defender at first base. So they're not going to take him out of the lineup too often. So I think it's going to be, whoever slows down is going to start losing playing time. But I think, like you said, they're just going to mix and match and move people in and out of that DH spot and just make it work. It's a good problem to have for them.
Yeah, Voy has mostly been a bust this year, but for fantasy managers who have been able to hold on, he's going to be huge down the stretch, it seems. Another player who could be huge down the stretch is Tristan McKenzie. 7 innings of 2-hit baseball, 1 earned run, an 8-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. In August, he has a 1.93 ERA, 28 strikeouts, and just 2 walks in 28 innings. This is the exact type of player who wins fantasy leagues down the stretch. He's a little bit unheralded. You might have missed it if you were busy at the beach this weekend or anything like that. Tristan McKenzie, what do you got on him?
I mean, we talked about him last week, and it's just like since he got called back up, he's been fantastic, and so there's nothing not to like. I had a couple people messaging me on Twitter over the weekend about it, and they were like, "Is this legit?" I'm like, "It is for now." Yeah, I mean, like this, and it's also not like he's a nobody who came out of nowhere. Like this is a guy we knew about coming into the season who just kind of like stumbled out of the gate, regrouped, and came back. And like this is what we were hoping for, when you drafted him at the last round or grabbed him for $1 in your draft, which I did. Unfortunately, I dropped him. Before cashing in on this, but this is something that we were hoping for coming into the season, so it's not like it's just coming out of left field. And so I think you can believe in it, and he's someone, like you said, that you can ride down the stretch.
Yeah, something you and I talked a little bit on Twitter about as well, is like Cleveland has a track record of developing, young pitchers and getting the most out of them. So, he has clearly made an adjustment with his control. I'm inclined to believe it.
I'm looking forward to the Zach Plesac bounce back.
Zach Plesac has been bad. Some other bads. We did mention the Orioles have lost 18 in a row. Alec Boehm has been demoted to Triple-A. You are kind of, I view as, might be more because of your Eagles connection. I know you're not a Phillies fan, but it seems like you're a little more in tune with the Phillies than most teams. What has happened to Alec Boehm this year?
Well, he's another guy we talked about a little bit last week. And I don't think anyone expected he was going to be what he was last year, right? Like he just kind of there wasn't a ton of power, but the average was just there. And he looked like this rising prospect with a plus hit tool. And then he just like stumbled out of the gate. And then I don't know if he just got in his own head or what, but he was just been atrocious on defense to the point where Girardi's just like, I can't play you, dude. Like, I can't let you figure it out at the plate if you're also hurting us in the field with just like, and like he has a ton of errors. He's among the league leaders despite losing that playing time. And even like I watch a lot of Phillies games, like he makes a lot of boneheaded plays that he doesn't even get credited for errors for, where you're just like, why would you do that? Why did you throw to second base and there's 2 outs and it was going to be a close play, stuff like that. And so I don't know if he was in his own head, but he like lost his job, and there was no more figuring it out. He was up and down, like throughout the year, and then starting to like turn it around, and then just like I don't know, he's just a mess. And I'm a mess trying to describe him. That's how much of a mess he is.
Yeah, it really isn't one of those things where you can, look at the baseball savant data and just say, this is what happened. Like last year, he had a 4.10 BABIP. Maybe that should have been a big sign. I don't think anyone expected him to hit 338, but he still hits the ball kind of hard. There's a lot of grounders. He's striking out more. I think, sometimes we get too deep into savant and StatCast, and, we're trying to figure out what's going on. And sometimes players just, play bad, and he just hasn't been good this year. So obviously, he gave me a drop in all redraft leagues, and he's only worth holding in a dynasty format. Another third baseman who I have it down as the bad, I've been very outspoken about Evan Longoria, and he missed a couple games this weekend with a hand issue. Now he's on the COVID IL. It sounds like it's vaccine related. It doesn't seem like he didn't test positive or anything, and it's not going to be a long absence. I am still holding down the 4 on Evan Longoria. The batted ball numbers are amazing. The Giants clearly figured something out with their veteran hitters this year. I think he's going to be huge in September. Pick up Evan Longoria. That is my message to you people. Some other standouts from this weekend. Walker Buehler, 7 2/3 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts. Is he your NL Cy Young pick right now, Mike?
Yeah. And I even pulled up the betting pros odds, when we were preparing for this, and he's the front runner now. I think last week when we were kind of looking at this and talking about these numbers, Wheeler was still in front, and then it was Buehler and then Burns. Now it's Buehler plus 160, Corbin Burns plus 200, and then Wheeler at plus 350, and then further down is Brandon Woodruff plus 800, and then Kevin Gausman at plus 1200. But I think it's, unless he really stumbles down the stretch, it's going to be Buehler.
It's been amazing how the Dodgers have just let him go this year after babying him for so long. I was kind of out on Walker Buehler as, like a second round pick entering the year. And that has definitely hurt me because he's a horse. Only one start this year. He hasn't gone 6 innings.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you can say that about like any Dodgers player over the last few years. Like I've just been so frustrated having any of them on my team because Dave Roberts just like, mixes and matches and sits guys. And it's just, but he's a stud now.
Yeah, so credit to everyone who believed in Walker Buehler. Some other pitchers who really shined this weekend. Max Fried, a complete game shutout against the Orioles on just 90 pitches. It was the first complete game of his career. Again, it comes against the Orioles, but still, this was a pretty impressive outing for Max Fried.
Yeah, and he threw just like 90 pitches, which you never see anymore, and he had never gone more than like 7 innings, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
And he's another one who's been up and down a lot this year, but has been kind of surging of late. And because I remember there was a point earlier in the year where I was like, do I drop Max Fried like in shallower leagues, or like, can I wait for this anymore? And then, held on. And luckily I did because he's pitching well and the Braves are playing well. And he's another guy that should be owned everywhere. And I think he probably is owned most places, but if not, definitely pick him up.
Yeah, the Braves, similar to the Yankees right now, are just streaking. It's fun to see. I got to chime into the peanuts and the Cracker Jacks right here. Mr. Buster, if this is about Evan Longoria, he's got to be back in a day or two. You hold Evan Longoria. We are holding the fort down on this. I believe very strongly in this. So again, some other pitchers just kind of cruising through. Robbie Ray was amazing again. He's a free agent this year. He's going to get paid. Aaron Nola was really good. I know he's been struggling lately. You just got to hold Nola, trust in the talent. Lucas Giolito had a great start again. So this is kind of studs being studs. An interesting one, Zach Gallen, who has been extremely frustrating, went into Coors Field, struck out 9 over 7 scoreless. He gets the Phillies next. Would you be comfortable starting Zach Gallen for that matchup?
Would I be comfortable starting him, or will I start him? Because those are two different things. I probably am starting him in leagues where I have him, just because in the leagues where I have him, I didn't grab him on waivers. I drafted him, or I paid money in an auction to get him. And so I've just been riding it. Like I think we talked last week or the week before about, maybe you can drop him. I think in shallower leagues you could have, but in deeper leagues you kind of had to hold on. So like I am starting him. I forget what grade I gave him on quick grades, but it was probably a 50 or 60 or 40 or something, somewhere in the middle. But I am starting him. I'm not comfortable about it, but I am starting him.
I think something Dan and I talked about last week was just how few pitchers there are, around right now, and how few you can trust. And it's, if you're looking at Zach Gallen versus some of these other, like lesser rostered pitchers that we're about to get to, it's like, if you're going to go down in the playoffs, if you're going to go down in your roto league, like you probably would rather go down with a guy like Gallen over, Nestor Cortez Jr., who we're about to get to here. But maybe you think otherwise, because Cortez was amazing. He helped the Yankees win their 8th in a row on Saturday, 7 innings of 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. Miles Michaelis was someone else who returned. And then Chris Bubic struck out 9 and took a no-hitter into the 7th inning against the Cubs. So do any of those 3 names, kind of lesser rostered guys, stand out to you as someone maybe to pick up?
Bubic or Bubich, I don't know how to say his name. I should have looked that up, but I have him in both of our dynasty leagues, which are daily lineups, and so it's not like I'm making the decision to start him on Sunday. I have every day, every start to decide whether or not to start him, and I've been wrong every time. If I sit him, he takes a no-hitter into the 7th. If I start him, he allows 7 runs, and so he has been pitching much better in the second half. So there's something to look at there, but he's been really frustrating me. So that one really jumped out. And then Nestor Cortez Jr., I don't really know. I mean, no one on the Yankees can do anything wrong right now. And I don't really know where this came from. I was looking into it last night, trying to see if maybe they figured out, because he's also not like a young prospect. He's been up before and he's been terrible. And so I was like, is there like a pitch mix difference? Like I see he's throwing his slider less and his curveball more. Like, is that contributing to it? But Other than that, I don't really get it. Do you see anything with Cortez Jr.? Have you looked into him at all?
I haven't yet. It's kind of similar to Luis Heel for them. Again, like you said, like the Yankees can do no wrong right now. I think the Logan Webb train, has left the station at this point. Everyone's onto Logan Webb, but
Left me behind.
I think like the Tristan McKenzies and the Tukey Toussaints are more so the ones that I'm interested in. And they're probably, a little more rostered and receive a little more publicity than guys like Cortez. But I when I'm looking for pitching, that's who I'm looking for right now.
By the way, Wonky Penguin in the chat is asking if DeGrom is droppable.
I was just going to bring that up because I see there's some back and forth in here. Do you have thoughts on that?
I do, but I'm not sure what they are. I would probably hold on if I could for another week or two for another update, but I'm not sure we're going to see him again, especially if the Mets keep losing. So I think if you're in a crunch and you're like really pushing to try and make the playoffs in a head-to-head league, I think you can do it. You just have to do what you have to do. If you can hold and you have an IL slot or a roster spot where you can kind of suck it up for a week and see if there's any updates, then I think you try to hold. But I think if it's now Monday and this is a make or break week for you, I think you can pull the trigger in redraft, not in any kind of keeper or dynasty, of course.
I think it's a super valid question because I think guys like Bieber and Kershaw factor in. There's some other pitchers working their way back that factor into that as well. And I think it's a perfect example of roto versus head to head. Like I personally am in a head to head league where I have DeGrom and I'm easily making playoffs, so I'm holding him because I just get in the playoffs. If he makes a start in the final week, that could be huge. Versus, like you said, if you're really fighting for that playoff spot right now and you need that roster spot, then yeah, go ahead and drop him. Getting in the playoffs is the most important thing. So I think that's the best way to handle it. One more who stood out this weekend on Sunday Night Baseball, Cal Quantrill, 7 innings, no earned runs, 9 strikeouts. He had 15 swinging strikes. 6 of his last 7 starts have been quality starts. I think this is another guy who I would prefer over, the Cortez, Bubic, Michaelis type guys. Are you in line with me on that? And do you have any excitement about Cal Quantrill?
Of course, I have excitement about Cal Quantrill. He's a Cleveland pitcher. Yeah, you and I have been talking about him for a few weeks, and we've been going back and forth on Twitter, and I've been including him in my my StatCast articles and my quick grades articles. He's just been pitching really well for like a really extended time now, and he was he was someone Cleveland targeted in that Clevenger trade as someone they wanted. It was weird when he was like kind of banished to the bullpen for a while. I was like, I don't really get that. I guess that they were pretty deep in the starting rotation, but then, these injuries happened and he made his way into starting rotation and boom, he's fantastic. And so I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think he's still available in a bunch of leagues, with each one of these starts, his ownership goes up. But I think, heading into this week might be the last time you can get him.
Target Cleveland pitchers minus Zach Plesac is the takeaway.
Plus Zach Plesac.
I'm going to fly through some closer stuff quickly. Emmanuel Clase, Cleveland pitcher. He has the last 7 successful saves for the Indians. James Karinchak has none since July 21st. So that was like a bit of a committee for a while. It's now definitely Clase. Kyle Finnegan, if you need saves, he is the guy in Washington. He picked up his 5th save over the weekend. His ERA is 2.90 for the season. Go pick him up if you need saves. The Reds, they had 3 saves this weekend. Michael Givens got the save on Friday. It looked like he was the guy. And then Michael Lorenzen gets the save on Saturday, Sunday. The Reds, it's one of those, like we've been talking about the Mariners, like we're just going in circles with some of these teams. And to me, it's more about the roster spot, whether or not the guy is good. If you have roster spots, you can afford to, speculate on one of Givens or Lorenzen, go ahead. I think I'd lean Givens, but do you have a read on the Reds bullpen?
No, because a few weeks ago, Heath Embry was the closer. And then before that, it was like they've had like 11 closers this season. There's actually a guy who messages me on Twitter almost every day about closer stuff. And I think at this point, he knows more about closers than I do. But he always asks me about, like, should I pick up Michael Givens? Should I drop Gregory Soto? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I don't think these teams know who the closer is. Just whoever got a save the day before, go with that until someone else does. It's really hard to predict, especially for like teams that are just piecing it together all year.
Yeah, and that's
Oh,
why, again, last week Dan said he likes Tyler Clippard because he at least knows if the Diamondbacks get a save chance that it's going to be Tyler Clippard. And that's why I like Kyle Finnegan, because it seems like he's the guy in Washington. So if you are
hmm.
making decisions on speculating saves, those are some things to keep in mind. But I know it can be tough. And something else that can be tough is when it comes time to Manscaped. And leading off, presented by Manscaped, you got to get the Lawnmower 4.0. What makes this trimmer different than all other trimmers? It's a multi-function on-off switch that can engage travel lock, which is huge for people who are able to travel. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives the ability to turn on the 4000K LED spotlight for a more precise shave. The new trimmer even allows you to customize your trim all over through additional guard lengths with sizes 1 through 4. And look-wise, it's sleek. It's a two-tone matte and gloss finish. Even features a hot fail stamped black chrome Manscaped logo. So if you want to get Manscaped, it's 20% off with free shipping. Code leading off at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Closer situations are tough. Reading that Manscaped ad is tough. And manscaping itself is tough. So it all ties in together there, Mike. And we're going
That's a
to
great segue.
transition.
Joe would be proud of that segue.
We're going to transition in to some hitting standouts after that read. So one player who I know is close and near and dear to your heart is Christian Yelich. And he had a game on Saturday where he looked like 2018-19 Christian Yelich, 2 homers and a stolen base. It was his first multi-homer game since August 2019. Did this restore hope for you, Mike?
No, because my hope has been just slashed and dashed all year with Christian Yelich. I have so many Christian Yelich shares, including like dynasty and keeper leagues, including an auction league with you and Dan Harris, where I am stuck with Christian Yelich next year for $44 out of not a huge budget. And so that hurts. So I really would love for him to keep bouncing back and, showing some more power and doing anything really to be productive, because there are daily lineups where I don't even start him every day at this point. I did start him that day, I think.
I think with someone like him, like it's very clearly like the past couple of years, he's had some knee and back issues. And, you can look at like all the, Savant, again, like looking at the Savant data. I don't think tells the whole story. Like when you have injuries like that, I think there are some days like Christian Yelich can get up and have, a throwback day, but I wonder if he's going to be able to do that every day, even for the rest of his career type thing. So I'm long term, I'm worried about Yelich, but it was nice to see him have at least a game like that for the former first round pick. And someone else who is going to be a first round pick, obviously, next year. I think I was talking with our friend Carmen Mayorano on Twitter this weekend, and we were discussing the possibility of Trey Turner, who he's up over 10 games eligible at second base now. Could he be the 101 next year? He had 5 hits and a homer this weekend.
Maybe. I think that'll depend on like Ohtani's eligibility in your league and Tatis's health, but I think he's going to be, in the conversation. But Vlad is up there too, so I don't know that he'll take the 1-1, but that the stolen base potential is there, especially, and if second base is as dire as it is next year as it was this year, then that'll come into play too.
Yeah, there's a lot of time, obviously, to look ahead to 2022, but I thought it was just a bit of a fun thing to figure out. The Astros really have turned things around recently. They were kind of struggling for a bit. Yordan Alvarez returned to the lineup on Friday. He homered in 3 straight games. And then Jake Myers, who most people haven't heard of. This reminds me of talking about Frank Schwindel last week. But again, these are the type guys who make an impact in fantasy baseball leagues in August. He homered and had 6 hits and 6 RBIs. Does he stand out to you at all for any reason?
No. I mean, other than he's playing really well. He was a name when I was working on quick grades this week. I was like, who? Like, is this a typo? Let me make sure this is right. And I actually had to because the thing with like creating the quick grades is a lot of it is just like formula driven, and I just like pull the stats and it takes me hours. And at the end, I look at where everything lands, and like I don't really mess with the grades that much, but I do scroll through to make sure there aren't any like glaring mistakes. And Jake Myers is a name this week. I was like, wait, he got what? Who is this person? Is he going to play? So I actually had to look at his stats this week and was like, oh, okay, interesting. We'll see.
He's someone who's hitting really well in AAA this year. And, as long as Kyle Tucker is sidelined, he could get some more playing time. So if you need a streaming hitter this week, I think Jake Myers makes a lot of sense. Salvador Perez has 2 homers. He's up to 32 for the season. I think he's overtaken Real Muto as, the best fantasy catcher, at least for this year. It'll be interesting to rank those guys for next year. Marcus Semien hit his 30th homer. Just a phenomenal season. And lastly, Wander Franco had 5 hits, 3 doubles, 6 runs this weekend. He's hitting 329 with a 973 OPS since July 30th. You love to see the top prospects performing.
Oh, no one loves to see that more than you. If you are getting called out by our boss, Dan Harris, in the chat right now.
So all of a sudden I'm trying to, host the show, get through the Manscaped read. There's text coming in from Dan Harris. There is, he's calling us out here in the chat. And it is, it's shaking me to my core a bit. I didn't realize the boss man would be tuning in today. So hopefully he doesn't see the comment about you being my favorite co-host either.
And we did talk about the overlays before we started, and we didn't see any Tuma and Maher ones. So we decided to continue being Joe and Dan.
Yeah.
Try to improve their brand a little bit.
Of ourselves.
Yeah.
There were no Tuma and Maher overlays, Mr. Dan Harris. So get out of here with calling us out on that. Mike, can you help us out with some DFS notes for today?
Sure. Let me scroll down to that portion. So it's a small slate. There's only 6 games tonight. The pitching is kind of gross. And so the first thing I'll start with is there's a pick a side game. There's Lance Lynn against the Blue Jays and Alek Manoah against the White Sox. So Lynn is 10,100 on FanDuel and 9,900 on DK. Manoah is a little bit less expensive, 9,600 on FanDuel, 8,500 on DK. So pick a side. Which of those are you going with? Are you going with slightly less expensive in Manoah or more stability in the ace and Lynn?
It's scary, just going against the Toronto lineup. I think I'd go with Lynn, but I understand the conundrum. I've never heard that saying before, pick a side, but I think that's a smart way to go about it.
Well, you haven't been listening to the show because Joe said it every day. So there's a few other pitchers. Jordan Montgomery, he's someone I have as more of like a GPP arm. He's affordable on FanDuel. He's 8,000, but on DK he's 10,000. So I'm not going near him on DK at 10,000 against the Braves. And then 2 kind of like arms I'm targeting tonight are Kyle Hendricks against the Rockies and Greinke against the Royals. Greinke probably the one I'm going to use in cash games, and then Hendricks is going to be the one I use in GPP. Hendricks is 8,300 on FanDuel and 8,100 on DK. So, and I don't think it's in Colorado. It's Chicago. So not as scary as going in course. So you have those top 3 arms, but I'm probably going Hendricks and Greinke in both of my contests. For game stacks, I have Mariners against the A's, who are starting Paul Blackburn. And some other some lineup builders. I was going to target some Braves right-handers, but those are guys we've talked about a few times over the last couple of weeks, but they're now kind of priced correctly. I know Joe has talked all year about kind of like getting in on these values before the sites catch up. Well, they've caught up, and so you can't really get those cheap Braves righties against left-handers anymore. But we do have your boy Frank Schwindel against the Rockies, Josh Rojas against the Pirates, Ty France, who's a guy I'm all over in my leagues. Ty France, I just traded for him in one of our leagues. He's been fantastic over the last month. He's only 3,300 on FanDuel, and he's a little bit more expensive on DK. But FanDuel, I'm grabbing Ty France, and then Yuli Gurriel and Abraham Toro is part of that Mariners stack against Paul Blackburn, and he's only 2,800 on FanDuel.
Ty France, I was just looking it up because I had a note on Ahmed Rosario, who's been on fire. He has the 2nd most hits in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break. I'm pretty sure Ty France was 3rd. So yeah, you are right that he has been great. The only other note I'll add is that, that Hendricks start comes in Chicago, and it's immediately following a long Coors homestand for those Rocky hitters. Typically, those first 2 games, once they get on the road, are even, the home road splits are even worse than usual. So I am definitely in support of Kyle Hendricks. One question we had in the chat was, would you play both Lynn and Manoah, or is that counterproductive playing 2 pitchers from the same game?
I typically don't because you limit your upside there. And I don't even I think Dan asked me about this last week. I don't even really like targeting those games if I can avoid it. But I typically, will just pick one side or the other. I don't like to start both of them because you're not going to get a win from both, even if, plus it's not like they're both going up against weak lineups. They're both going up against really good lineups. And so no need to target both of them.
All right. Before we get out of here for the last few minutes, let's check in on the home run leaderboard. Did anything really exciting happen in that regard this weekend, Mike?
So one exciting thing is that Joe forgot to make his calls for a few days and got called out in Discord for it. And so he's kind of setting his home run call as Bryce Harper in perpetuity, which we're going to allow. But there is the great irony of Joe being anti-bot all year long, and now he is setting a bot for his home run calls. And so there is great shame in doing this, and Discord will never let him forget that. There were a bunch of home runs. I'm not going to read them all, but we do now have a tie atop the leaderboard. D. Gordon Liddy, who actually changed his name because of Joe butchering his original name. That's a fun fact from old school listeners of the podcast. D. Gordon Liddy got 2 over the weekend, and he's now tied with Randy at the top at 26. And Useless Panic also got 2 home runs and is up to 22. So the top of the leaderboard is D. Gordon Liddy and Randy tied at 26. Tough Guy Joe PSB at 23. Useless Panic at 22. Wonky Penguin and Lawnmower Man 4.4 at 21. Pygo at 20, a couple others at 20, and then Dan Harris is at 19, and he got 1 over the weekend from Austin Riley, and I know he would be upset if I didn't give him credit and call him out for that. I'm somewhere down there. Don't worry about where I am. I'll catch up soon.
All right. If about Discord, if you are a Fantasy Pro subscriber, make sure you get in the Discord. And I know it can feel a little intimidating at first. There's a ton of channels there. Just a real life testimonial. I had never used Discord, prior to a few months ago. And now it's something that's really helpful to interact. You can interact with Mike and I and Dan and Joe, and just everyone can interact with each other. And if you thinking about a trade or a pickup to make, you can ask for advice. It is a really cool platform. So if you are a Fantasy Pro subscriber already, or just want to get in the Discord, make sure you do that, because it has been invaluable, and it's really built a cool sense of community. There's even, a podcast channel, so you can talk with everyone on here. I know everyone that's listening to us live right now must already be in there, but in all seriousness, that's not an ad read or anything. That's just my own 2 cents on the Discord.
Yeah, definitely. And now that football's starting off, it's really taking off on like the football channels. Dan is in there doing like mock drafts every night, so you can not only can you use like the Fantasy Pros mock draft simulator, which is actually really cool, and I think it's free to even if you're not a subscriber, but you can actually mock draft against other live people, which is really useful for preparing for your leagues. I know I did a bunch of mocks for my league that I drafted against Joe over the weekend, just to make sure that I continued to get bad grades from Joe, because I know as long as I get a bad grade from Joe, I'm doing really well.
Absolutely. So we're running a few minutes over. That's okay, because Dan has given me the green light to do that, and I don't have.
It's Monday. There's too much to get to on Monday. We can't do this in 30 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was the weekend shows, man. It's funny just the difference between a weekend show versus a slate like tonight. Honestly, like you said, there's only like 6 games. So tomorrow's show, I will be here with Dan Harris. There will be another Tuma and Maher show later this week. We'll be bouncing around a bit between all the co-hosts this week, but the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks, you will get us. Leading off is here all week long. Reach out on Twitter. My name is Brendan Tuma at Too Much Tuma. This has been Mike Maher at Mike Maher. Mike, buddy, hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, buddy.